Hello, Dr. Berg here. In this video, we're going to share with you some data on protein. There's 9 points I want to bring up, starting with digestibility. A lot of times people, when they get older, they can't digest red meat like they used to. Okay, why is that? Because the collagen in the red meat is actually more plentiful than in white meat. And so when they start to consume it, it becomes more difficult to digest. They get indigestion, and it doesn't seem to process that well. Okay, so that's a factor. So maybe you can't consume that much. If that's the case, you can either do a different type of protein, or you can add more betaine hydrochloride or apple cider vinegar to make your stomach acids more acidic, because it's really the acid pH that helps activate the enzymes for protein in the stomach that allow you to digest the collagen that you need for your joints and ligaments and tendons. So rather than not consume red meat and be lacking that collagen absorption, why not just get your stomach really strong? As you age in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you start losing your stomach acids. And that's the problem that most people have, especially if you're taking antacids or you're taking any type of medication that gets rid of stomach acid. Okay. So, and then also lean versus fatty protein. Believe it or not, it's easier to digest fattier protein than lean protein. Like if you did whey protein powder versus the fatty hamburger, not with the bun, but just regular hamburger, the fatty hamburger is much easier to digest, believe it or not. So apparently in Mother Nature's design, protein always come with fat. You never see just lean protein in nature. So just consume it as its whole form, not some lean anything or low fat anything. Sometimes people have an allergy to seafood. So that would be an allergy, so you're not going to digest it. You're going to react to it. You're going to reject it. Or like hemp protein powder, when I consume that, my body just cannot digest that. So that wouldn't be the source of protein that I can digest. It bloats me. Or let's say you're allergic to casein or milk protein. You're going to, of course, you can't digest it. Or peanuts. So you can't digest the protein in peanuts. So that would be a digestive factor to look at. Okay. Number 2, stress in the adrenals. The more stress you experience, the more the adrenals are active, the more cortisol is going to be released. And when you have more cortisol, you get more of a catabolic effect. That's more of a breakdown effect. So here you have the situation where you're breaking down protein faster than it's building back up. So if you have an accelerated breakdown process of protein and it's not coming back up, you're going to need to consume a little more protein. So that's why adrenal cases or adrenal weakness or adrenal body type cases need more amino acids or protein than people that don't have that problem, simply because they are breaking down more protein than they're building back up. One point to consider. Okay, number 3, the quality of protein. Make sure it's grass-fed if at all possible. Make sure it's organic without hormones. Wild-caught if it's fish, not farm-raised. Pasture-raised eggs. These are all real key points of quality. Number 4, insulin. So if you're insulin resistive or you're diabetic, you're not going to have that little key that opens the door that allows the amino acids to go in there. So you're going to be deficient in proteins. That's why a lot of times it's hard to get toned, or you might have loose collagen or hanging tissue from your body. So you're going to need a little bit more amino acid, but the main thing you're going to need to do is fix the problem with insulin. I have tons of videos on that because even consuming more protein is not going to fix it. Okay, it's just one factor to consider. Next one is number 5, is the protein complete? If you're a vegan, you're going to have to combine different foods to get your complete protein profile. But eggs have a complete protein profile. Animal products do as well. But eggs are really good for a complete protein. All right, next one is number 6, the amount of protein. Make sure it's not excessive. Don't do this massive amount of protein that is like 10, 12, 14 ounce steak type thing. Do between 3 to 6 ounces. That's all your body needs. Anything more is going to strain the liver. It's important. Now let's talk about growth hormone. Growth hormone interacts with protein in that it helps spare proteins. In other words, it prevents muscle loss. So when you stimulate growth hormone, it helps to preserve your own muscle protein and your own collagen, all the protein on your body. So that would be intermittent fasting, So by not eating for a period of time, you actually spike growth hormone by 2,000% and preserve your muscle protein, so you'll prevent muscle loss. And other proteins as well. So this is important. Intense exercise will help you. Good sleep will help you as well. Those are the main things with that. Now, cooked versus raw. The more cooked a protein product is, the worse it is. So if you're having a steak, have it more rare than overly cooked. Very important with this to actually get more amino acid absorption. Okay, stomach pH, very common problem. If you are getting older or you had a history of indigestion or even heartburn or acid reflux, that means you don't have enough acid. And that's why I recommend apple cider vinegar with each meal, or you can get them in tablets, and that'll start building up your pH to allow you to digest and assimilate more of this protein. So those are the 9 factors of protein. Make mental note of it. Thanks for watching. Let's talk about how to choose your proteins wisely. Now, the problem with protein is that in nature, protein never comes as a complete protein. It comes with fat. And there's such a thing called the insulin index, which looks at the protein effect of insulin. So in other words, the leaner the protein, the more the spike in insulin. If you want to get into ketosis very, very deeply, you don't want to do the lean protein. You want to do more fattier protein. Now, if we look at the ketogenic diet as far as a pie chart, 5% should be carbs, and I failed to also add another 5% for salad and vegetables because I don't count those into the equation. So roughly 10% carbs, but half of that should be vegetable, and 20% protein. And then we have 70% fat. So we're just going to focus on the fat and the protein right now. So if we look at 70% fat to 20% protein, we're looking at the percentage of calories. And you can see, wow, that's a lot of fat to protein, right? It's actually 3.5 times more fat than protein. But if we take a look at the actual weight in grams, simply because there's more condensed energy in fat than protein, then we're dealing with a different ratio. We're dealing with 1.56 to 1 ratio. So we're talking about weight, okay? Because when people say, wow, you're eating this high-fat diet, you're eating 70% of your calories fat, it's really kind of like a little more than a 1-to-1 ratio. So when you really look at it from a weight point of view, it doesn't look that unreasonable, okay? So the more that we can align ourselves with this ratio right here, the more truly keto it is. Now, if we increase this even more, we have more fat to protein, then we're going to generate more ketones. And this is what they do for epileptic children. The diet is very, very high in fat because they're trying to generate enough ketones from the fat to really make it work. And when you have more fat to protein, it's really good on your digestive system. It's a lot better than doing leaner proteins. And of course, that depends on what type of fat you're talking about. But what happens too is when you increase more fat, you increase more stimulation of bile from your liver to actually digest the fat. People who are on a low-fat diet end up with a deficiency of bile, and they're more at risk for getting gallstones, which is interesting. All right, let's take a look at this chart right here. It's very, very interesting. So we have fat and protein. We're just looking at kind of the ratios here. An egg is the 1-to-1 ratio. So if you're eating egg, maybe you add a little more fat to that. You could do it several ways. You could add a little butter or whatever. Hamburger, 2-to-1. That's a pretty good ratio. Twice as much fat as protein. So hamburger is a really good thing to do for keto. I consume a lot of hamburger. Steak, look at this, 1-to-2. Wow. Most steak that you eat is just not fatty enough. And people tend to cut off the fat. They don't eat the fat. So if you're going to do a steak, make sure you add more fat to that meal. All right, chicken. Actually, it's lower in fat, higher in protein. So there's twice as much protein as fat. But I'm not sure about this one because here's the point. If you're eating this with the skin where there's some fat underneath it, this might even out to a 1.1 ratio. So always eat the skin on the chicken. All right, bacon, 1-to-1. Now you would think it'd be a lot higher in fat. It is, but you're frying off all the fat. So if you're doing bacon, you want to actually add some more fat to the meal. Okay, look at this, a pecan, 7-to-1. Pecan is very, very fatty. Of course, we're not talking about saturated fats, we're talking about omega-6 fatty acid. And there's a little bit of carb, okay, there's a tiny bit of carb, but pecans are a really good nut to consume. I consume pecans probably on a daily basis. This is a good ratio. All right, now let's talk about the peanut. It's 2-to-1. It's a good ratio, but many times if I eat a meal, I will have some peanut butter with celery just to get a little bit more fat in the diet. All right, cod liver. Now, I'm not talking about cod liver oil. I'm talking about cod liver. It's right here. Check this out. Icelandic cod liver. Maybe you've never heard about it before. There's many different brands. Most of them are wild caught. Okay, so that's the one you want to get. I don't know if they get it all from the same place, but this is quite good. Look at the ratio. 5 times as much fat to protein. This is definitely ketogenic food. And the oil in it actually is all from the cod liver. Okay, so I'm not saying you're going to drink the whole thing. You could, and maybe you should. You can actually put it in the refrigerator and have a little bit each day. But yesterday I consumed an entire can. It was a little too much fat in one sitting. But if you did a half of this, you'd be great. But yesterday I was not hungry for the entire day. I think I just had one meal, and normally I'll have 2. But this is extremely satisfying. Summer sausage. Now, what is summer sausage? It's a type of sausage, here's an example, that you normally don't need to refrigerate it unless you open it up and then you put it in the refrigerator. This one, it says to refrigerate. Okay, that's cool. But this is something that I consume on a regular basis as well. Of course, this one is organic, uncured summer sausage. The problem is trying to find summer sausage without dextrose, which is synthetic sugar, and without nitrates. Now, this does have celery juice, and I did a video on this topic. It's true that celery juice does have nitrates, and so therefore people say, well, it's the same as the nitrates you would get from other sources, right? But there's really no studies that I could find that said that consuming celery juice with the nitrates has any harmful effects. So it may create some harmful effects, but if you know of a study, put it down below. But I'm still alive. I've been consuming this for a long time. So this has organic beef, sea salt. All right, and then it has organic honey. Now, I know what you're going to say. You said not to have honey. This is a very, very small amount. I'm okay with it. It's like 1 gram per serving, so it's pretty low. And then we have organic spices, cultured celery juice powder, lactic acid starter culture. But this is like a 2-to-1 ratio, so it's actually perfect. If I'm in a hurry, I can just chop this off. I might add some cheese to it. I might just have it by itself, and I'm good to go. And also Lucy, our little granddaughter, who's 2 right now, loves this, and it's pretty healthy. And I know someone is going to want to know, where do I get this? You're going to have to look it up. I have no affiliation with these companies, but I will put a link down below of the names of these so you can do the research on them. Okay, then we get to the macadamia nut. Look at this, 11.5 fat to a 1 protein ratio. This is quite killer nut in a good way. All right, sardines. Now check this out. Here's an example of some sardines. You would think it'd be fattier, but look at it, has twice as much protein as fat, but it comes in oil. So a lot of that oil is going to shift this. It's probably going to be like a 1-to-1 ratio. So this is, I consume sardines. It's totally fine. You need to do it. But look at this, salmon, 1.5-to-1. So apparently salmon fits this closest. It's the ideal keto food. I love salmon. I love fatty fish. I consume salmon on a regular basis. Salmon also has selenium to counter any potential mercury that's in that fish. But of course, you want to do wild caught. All right, in summary, if you want to get into a little deeper ketosis, focus more on the proteins that are higher in fat. Thanks for watching. Hey, before you go real quick, I have a course entitled How to Bulletproof Your Immune System. It's a free course. I want you to take it. And here's why. Here's you. Here is your environment. Everyone is focused on this over here, avoiding your environment. But what about here? What about strengthening your immune system? That's what's missing. This course will show you how to bulletproof yourself, and so you can tolerate and resist your environment much better by strengthening your own immune system. I put a link down in the description right down below. Check it out and get signed up today.